think this is important for us to talk about the common threads of great sprinters. And I think, we obviously want to be like the fast guys. So, what do they do? First of all, ground contact times are about 1/12 of a second, 0.08. So we want to do things where we hit the track hard enough to get back off the track quickly. Now that's a force generation, that's a transition, and I'm sorry, I got it backwards. A force absorption, a transition to a force generation. And by the way, that's one of the reasons why sprinters wear sprint spikes. They have no padding. There's no leakage of energy at all. Everything that goes into the track comes right back at you. Secondly, there's a big split of the thighs. I think this is going to be really important. And a lot of the things that we do in practice is to try to develop the big split habit. High angular velocity. Now, what we're talking about here is not only is there a big split of the thighs, but there's a fast switch that it goes from toe off to knee up very quickly. Slow people are very slow with that. Fast people are very fast. You may say, well, gee, isn't like big split and high angular velocity just another way of saying stride length, stride frequency? Yes, kind of. But when we're talking with people like Dr. Ken Clark, these things make a lot more sense to me than the very simplified stride length, stride frequency. We want to be big in the front. Not only do we have a big split of the thighs, but the angle is tilted towards the front. And then finally, the fastest guys are elastic. I love the word snappy. Snappy to me is like a stretched rubber band. You let go of it and it snaps. And they're twitchy. All those things are basically descriptors of the same thing. And that's why people that get like last place in a race seem very muscular, and they try really, really hard, and they seem really, really tired at the end of the race. Whereas the guy who wins the race does not seem tired. It doesn't seem like he's put out much energy at all, because I think it's this elastic rubber band snappiness, twitchiness, where the efficiency of the energy expense is just incredible. So we want to be snappy and twitchy and elastic in everything we do. So going back to the look like Carl mantra. Now, a lot of professional sprint coaches, say, oh, well, it's a lot more complicated than that. But, that's why they get paid millions of dollars, is because they see things in very complex ways. But I think when we're working with 15 and 16-year-old kids that are in their first year of track, or a lacrosse team, or a baseball team, God forbid, that never has had any sprint training at all. We have to say, look like Carl. We want to coach to a certain model, and that is to be tall, which means the hips are underneath our trunk. We want to cross the hands with, not the hands, we want to cross the hips with our hand. If you see Carl Lewis's back hand, there's, maybe 12 inches past his pocket. So that's what we're looking for. Carl likes to talk about putting your elbow to the sky, but if your hand is where it is right here, your elbow is to the sky. And then finally, we want that big front side, with the knee up, nearly flat with the front thigh, and the foot out underneath the knee, out in front of the body. Now, just to clarify some arm action stuff here, the downstroke, the arms do not stay at 90 degrees. Matter of fact, they're less than 90 degrees up at the top. And as your arms go down and back, the arm elongates and then bends again. So I think it's important that you don't ever tell kids to keep their arms bent at 90 degrees. There is a stretch reflex. When that elbow goes to the sky, or as I like to say, when the hand crosses the hips, there's a stretch that happens up in the shoulder. And when that stretch happens, there is a stretch reflex, which is a spring back. So if you're leaving your hands out in front of you, you're never going to get that stretch reflex. Now, distance runners, I always make fun of distance runners. They have T-Rex arms. Their arms stay in front of their body. It's like they have these little short arms. And the reason for that is very efficient. It's just not fast. And what they're trying to do is save energy so they can run 10 miles. Well, we're not. Sprinters don't run 10 miles. So we want to have a full range of motion with the arms. This is just more diagrams of the exact same thing. That you can see the elbow goes to the sky, the hands cross the hips. The elongation, figure 3 there is the elongation of the arm. And I'm big on arms. I think that sometimes the simple act of being bigger in the arms can have huge impacts on the lower body. This comes from my good friend Jonas Dodu from the University of Loughborough in England. And the guy on the right is more optimal. The knee's up a little bit more, the foot's underneath the knee, and that's just what I call a bigger split of the thighs. You see the bigger split? Not by much. I mean, I think it's the same guy in both pictures, but it's just, in one picture, he's opened up a little bit better. And by opening up that big split of the thighs, you get more of a stretch reflex of that back leg. So it's not just the shoulder that undergoes a stretch reflex. By the way, if you look at the hands crossing the hips here, that looks good. You also see that the elbow is going to the sky. So here's the stretch reflex that happens on toe off. The bigger the split, the bigger the stretch, and the less energy that it takes to snap that back leg through to become the knee up. So this is a picture I took of Deja Stevens, 2018, I guess, NCAA finals. And, what a great split of the thighs here. Elbow to the sky, hands cross the hips. By getting that big split, her left leg, that back leg, is going to snap upward. Now, one of the things that we've started doing this year, I kind of like these. These are 6-pound medicine balls. Both of these guys are guys that are notorious for not getting a very good front side. They're fast, but they don't have that Carl Lewis looking front side. So by just taking a medicine ball, 6 pounds, and telling them to let that ball bounce into their knee, really changes the way they look. To me, this just passes the eye test. This looks good. Now, obviously, doing this for 5 seconds is not going to change them. But when we layer this with everything else that we do, constantly working on these types of things, I think it has a huge cumulative effect. Just a basic A-skip. We're driving the knee a little higher than normal, but if you see that foot is out in front of the knee, you see an exaggerated split. You see that the hands have crossed the hips, the elbow to the sky. Everything we do, we're trying to reinforce this and create habits of mechanics that becomes ingrained in our brain so that even when our brain becomes lazy, which it does with habits, the habits will take over. This is Marcellus Moore. This is when he was running 1031 as a 15-year-old for me. And you see the big split. You see that it's the angle, though, is tilted towards the front. That tilt is really, really important. You see that with the big split, he's going to have a stretch reflex with his left leg, that back leg, and it's going to snap somewhat, snap through. Now you also see that his elbow is going to the sky, his backhand is across the hips, and he's staying very tall. Now Marcellus does not look like a short guy here because all good runners run a couple inches taller than they really are. Marcellus was 5'6", 149 in this picture, but he looks like he's about 6 foot.